Good afternoon, everybody. Well, today we are going to discuss about what is eco-criticism. This talk, it will be divided into different parts so that we may have a better understanding of what the theory eco-criticism is. And this lecture, it will focus on the introduction of eco-criticism. It will help us understand what basically eco-criticism is as a theory. So coming to what is eco-criticism, eco-criticism studies the representation of man's relationship with nature in a literary text. It helps us to evaluate our role in the preservation as well as the destruction of environment. William Rickett, in essay Literature and Ecology and an Experiment in Eco-Criticism, which was published in 1978, focuses on the application of ecology and ecological concepts to the study of literature. Then after William Ricketts, Charles Blotfelty, who is one of the pioneers of eco-criticism, has revived the term eco-criticism given by William Rickett. She defines it as the study of relationship between literature and the physical environment. One of her well-known book, The Eco-Criticism Reader, Landmarks in Literary Ecology, 1996, which was published in 1996, in its introduction, she writes that despite the broad scope of inquiry and disparate levels of sophistications, all ecological criticism shares the fundamental premise that human culture is connected to the physical world, affecting it and affected by it. So, eco-criticism basically takes as its subject the interconnections between nature and culture, specifically the cultural artifacts of language and literature. So since then, since such kind of definition of eco-criticism, the term eco-criticism has flourished in its usage, and it flourished in two phases worldwide. The first wave of scholarship, it focuses on literary explanation of the natural world in literature, whereas the second wave concentrates on literature concerning metropolis and industrialization. So in these two waves, eco-criticism is considered to have flourished worldwide, right? It was basically the first British critic who used the term eco-criticism was Jonathan Bate. So Jonathan Bate is the first British eco-critic to use this term, and he used it in his work Romantic Ecology, which was published in 1991. Now the question arises, is eco-criticism a theory like any other literary theory, or is it just a merely way of reading and interpreting a literary text? Now, this is an important question that we need to confront if eco-criticism is not just another reductive theory that ties down a literary work to a predictable formula without any regard for its singularity. And we need to confront this question also if we are looking for the possibility of eco-criticism leading us to a radical political praxis. So, as a theory, Lawrence Buell, Ursula K. Hesse, Karen Thornburg, in their work Literature and Environment, which was published in 2011, they say that literature and environmental studies, commonly called eco-criticism or environmental criticism, aim to explore the environmental dimensions of literature in a spirit of environmental concern, not limited to any one method or commitment, the environmental concerns they must be addressed qualitatively as well as quantitatively. So what here Buell and Hesse and Thornburg they try to do, they try to theorize connections between literature and environment, not only the relationship between characters portrayed in literary works and the physical environment, but also between the nature of language, textuality, perception of space, differences, boundaries, flaws, and power. So, what we need to dwell or what we need to theorize connections is not only between literature and environment through characters, rather by how what kind of language is used, what is the textuality of the particular text, what is the perception of space, and other such boundaries. Now, since its inception, literature has had an enduring relation with nature. Nature, in its widest sense, as human nature, animal nature, inanimate nature, and objects of nature which surround us and which are the richest source of our culture, has been what most literary authors have been preoccupied with. Now, the close relationship between nature and mankind is evident in the works of writers down the ages, irrespective of their culture, their language, their country, and the period to which they belong to their era. Now, the representation of nature and its association with human beings in the text not only highlights the mental, social, cultural state of the character in the text, but it also suggests the author's approach towards the environment. Take a look on how, in different era, the representation of nature has changed or has evolved. Starting from Renaissance, in Renaissance, writers lamented the degradation of nature and favored pastoral life to city life. Later, the age of enlightenment, it saw nature as a scientific object. However, for romantics, nature remains an inspiration of their poetry. By the end of 19th century, environment, society, and heredity were considered as underlying features of human character. Well, coming to the modern writers, they were more interested in city life rather than in the solitude of forest and serenity of mountains. Then, with the turn of 21st century, the debate on environmental crisis intensified worldwide. So this is how the representation of nature changed with the change of time. Now, delving into humankind's engagement with nature in a literary text, the engagement, which can be both overt and covert, is not only a very rewarding experience on a subjective level for a serious reader. So, such an act of reading also opens up ways of becoming sensitive to images of nature and also for problematizing the idea of harmony between nature and humankind, which is otherwise commonly taken for granted. So such readings, they have received tremendous encouragement in the last about 40 years, you may say 50 years, because of the looming spectacle of global warming, imminent climate change, making our globe an extremely risky place for the survival of all kinds of life form. So recognizing this agency of addressing the environmental issues and the vitality of interconnections between nature and culture, eco-critics they focus on the study of literature from eco-critical perspective. So hence, eco-criticism, which takes an earth-centered approach to literary studies, has emerged as an important era of inquiry in the field of literary studies. Now, given the fact that the destruction of biodiversity, depletion of valuable natural resources, proliferation of exploitative technologies, pollution, and accelerated warming of our planet, leading to perceptible climate change with ruinous consequences, are no longer mere fiction, but these are the issues which are being debated into their acutely felt immediacy by scholars from almost all fields of knowledge, literary theory also. In its eco-critical avatar is now engaged with all these issues as represented in literary work. So this foregrounds the essentiality of reading literary text from eco-critical perspective. Now, another important thing that we need to understand is that the eco-critical approach is inherently plural. Now, how is it plural? because it draws on insights provided by earth sciences, philosophy, post-colonial theory, economic theory, sociology, anthropology, ethics, gender studies, and politics, and many more. Right? So, eco-criticism, in a nutshell, is an environmentally oriented approach to reading of literary works which focuses on representations of nature and interactions between environment and human culture and how these interactions impact the overall tenor of life. So, eco-criticism, in its proselytizing aspect, foregrounds the essentiality of maintaining ecological balance and bringing in cultural change to the study of the representations of human-nature relationship in literary text. So, thus, in its fullest expression, eco-criticism is a hermeneutic practice which is deeply enmeshed in politics. It engages with binaries such as nature culture, man woman, power and powerlessness, local and global, tribal, pastoral or rural, and urban, caste binaries in the Indian context, and class dynamics also. So it would thus not be erroneous to suggest that politics very deeply informs eco-critical readings. So this is a brief introduction to eco-criticism, and we will have more discussions in the next part of this series, and we'll try to explore how eco-criticism uh, is how eco-critical studies of Indian literary text is being made, and how the Indian literary text they represent nature in their writings, and how the representation has changed over a period of time. Besides this, we will also discuss some of the key points, some of the key notes related to eco-criticism, specifically focusing on the essay of courage and other important points that are closely related to eco-critical studies or eco-criticism as a whole.